Hello, a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Now, millions joined a march for unity all across France and the world as they stood up to terrorism. 40 world leaders joined a 1.6 million strong crowd in Paris. We will get you a detailed report on that story in just a bit. But first up, a look at the headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi woos global investors at Vibrant Gujarat Summit, says India will soon be the best destination for ease of business. US Secretary of State John Kerry is all praise for Prime Minister's Make in India campaign, seeks to boost trade ties with India by 5 times. Indonesian authorities will attempt to retrieve the black box of the sunken AirAsia airliner today. The recorder will clear the mystery surrounding the crash. And millions take to the streets in Paris in a massive unity march, even as French police continues to look for the fugitive suspect in the supermarket hostage crisis. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning. Prime Minister Narendra Modi launched the 2-day Vibrant Gujarat Summit on Sunday. As he addressed global leaders, the Prime Minister pitched India as the next best global business destination. In a bid to woo global investors, he promised to make India the easiest destination to do business with a stable tax regime and a transparent and fair policy environment. He said necessary steps were being implemented towards making the dream a reality. Here's more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi pitched Vibrant India to investors at the Gujarat Global Business Summit, showcasing the possibilities the country can offer. In an effort to attract more investors, he assured to make India the best possible destination to do business. He promised them a stable tax regime and all fairness and transparency to make that happen.
We are trying to complete the circle of economic reforms speedily. We are also keen to see that our policies are predictable. We are clear that our tax regime should be stable. Since the first day, my government is actively working to revive the economy. My government is committed to create a policy environment that is predictable, transparent and fair.
Pitching for his pet campaign Make in India, Prime Minister showcased India's vast, low-cost manpower and internal demands as opportunities for global players. Despite fluctuation in global economy remaining a concern, Prime Minister called for a solution to seek inclusive growth.
The biggest concern is about the global economy. We all have to find the ways for stability and recovery. We also have to work for sustainable and inclusive growth.
The PM had launched the Make in India campaign last year to boost the manufacturing sector, which lags behind China. He now wants to take it to the next level by making India the next global manufacturing hub.
4 months back, we launched Make in India initiative to encourage the growth of manufacturing in the country. We are working hard to make India a global manufacturing hub.
The summit is being attended by top industrialists from across the world, besides US Secretary of State John Kerry, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and World Bank head Jim Yong Kim. The United States and 7 other countries, including Canada and Japan, are for the first time official partner countries at the summit. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning on this very subject is senior journalist Priya Ranjan Das. Good morning and thank you for joining me on the program, Priya Ranjan. I mean, some of the measures that have been announced, several promises being made by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, is that really enough for global investors to come into India?
The promises only show that it's works in progress. And India is not there. The global situation, as the Prime Minister himself has said, is also not very conducive at this point of time. As we know in the past, 5 years of high growth that India experienced happened at a time when global conditions were such, economic conditions were such that all boats were raised. Of course, India did very well and was second fastest growing next to China. India still, as the World Bank president said in this meeting, is an island of somewhat better performing economies in the world. But, as we know, with less than 4% GDP growth, manufacturing most often in negative, and the macroeconomic conditions being what they are today, with interest rates high and infrastructure bottlenecks that we've always had, that infrastructure deficit, problems of land, water, of our policies and procedures and the clearances, we have a huge task for any government to perform. And what the Prime Minister told this global business meeting was that his government is sincere. So to that extent, to the extent that such a public commitment is made, and the government, it's good to keep reiterating what the government intends to do. At least it's to that extent the government machinery, the bureaucracy and the policymakers have the task before them to approach. But as we know, these are difficult times. And even in the past, if you look at this particular event of Vibrant Gujarat, this is the 6th edition. In the 5 earlier editions, the kind of commitments which have come. Now, what these kind of investors meetings do is to, they result in some memorandum of understanding signing,
yes,
and
but
some commitments and
really
pledges done, but they need to be followed up. And as we know, very little of what was committed in the 5 earlier editions have actually fructified. For these investment projects and investment proposals to actually get translated into factories and industries on the ground, you need much more. And Gujarat, which is supposed to be in terms of doing business, is a better place than some of the other states. Even in Gujarat, the results have not been encouraging at all.
Right.
And Gujarat own performance compared to some of the other states Gujarat is not the topmost state in terms of an investment destination in any case. It's been among the top 5, but it's been at the lower end of top 5, sometime even slipping out of the top 5. So that's one of our most progressive state. So we have a long way to go as a country.
Indeed, we do have a long way to go as a country. It remains to be seen what really happens. But in the meantime, of course, United States sees Prime Minister's Make in India initiative as a win-win opportunity for the world. US Secretary of State John Kerry said Washington is keen to boost trade ties with India. Significantly, his remarks come ahead of US President Barack Obama's visit to India this month for the Republic Day celebrations. Here's more.
And we take this opportunity to welcome Mr. John Kerry.
Among the most prominent global leaders at the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, US Secretary of State John Kerry carried the sentiments of the US administration of expanding business and trade ties with India. Seeking to push India to give US companies greater access, Kerry said both nations need to tap incredible possibilities toward a greater economic partnership. Two-way trade between US and India currently stands at $100 billion. Both countries aim to boost the figure 5 times.
The moment has literally never been more ripe to deliver on the incredible possibilities of relationships between all of our countries. We share Prime Minister Modi's goal of increasing our country's annual trade 5-fold in the years ahead, and we want to expand our commercial ties and change the way our businesses talk with one another.
Impressed with the Prime Minister's mantra of inclusive development, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Kerry praised the Make in India initiative as a global opportunity.
We need to join together and take advantage of the challenge that was laid down by Prime Minister Modi, who is now committed to greatly expand India's wind resources, make your agricultural systems more resilient, increase your national solar mission fivefold, and together we can create an environment where all of our companies play leading roles in bringing cutting-edge technologies, equipment, capital, and know-how, not just to India, but to countless countries that need this growth and development now. That's how we will turn Prime Minister Modi's Make in India initiative a win-win opportunity for the planet as a whole.
Kerry's remarks assume significance just days before US President Barack Obama arrives to attend the Republic Day celebrations. The two sides are expected to sign a slew of agreements to bolster defense, economic and strategic ties. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Priyaranjan, a reaction on that now. Some lofty words there by John Kerry. Is that just a publicity stunt before President Obama's visit, or is there something really concrete that's going to happen?
No, that's not publicity stunt. You can't say that. These kind of public pronouncements are really useful, as I was saying in the in reply to the earlier question that you asked. So these commitments, for instance, you have a trade, two-way trade target between India and US, that is to raise it by 5 times, which that has been reiterated. That is Prime Minister Modi's target, which now John Kerry says will, should be achievable and should be the target that both countries should work at. There is a lot of opportunity in Make in India campaign, as Kerry himself has flagged, and particularly in new technology, in clean energy technology and things like that. But on the ground, things must start moving. Both in non-conventional energy and in the nuclear area, for instance, the progress has to be done. And during the president's visit, which is a landmark, which is because it's for the first time that an American president is coming for the Republic Day parade, number one, and that an American president during his term in office is visiting India twice. So that in itself is a landmark and going to be, and so these kind of, there is clearly immense possibilities of cooperation between, as it's been pointed out, the largest democracy and the oldest democracy. And these things, but these all needs to be translated into action. And, but stating it, I do not think is is a bad idea. Means to say that again and again helps the process surely.
All right, we'll have to leave to that. Thank you so much, Priyaranjan Dash, for joining us on the program this morning and putting things into perspective for us. Meanwhile, of course, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon called upon India for greater contribution towards formulating a meaningful climate change agreement. In his keynote address at the Vibrant Gujarat Summit, the UN chief said that a comprehensive agreement was necessary to keep the world safe from dangerous climate change. In December last year, about 190 nations agreed on the building blocks of a new-style global deal due in 2015 to combat climate change. The UN chief also spoke on issues related to environment and clean energy. He also lauded the Indian government's efforts in using more renewable energy.
I count on India's forward-looking leadership this year as governments from around the world seek to adopt a meaningful, equitable, and universal climate change agreement in Paris. I applaud and commend Prime Minister's initiative to increase the share of solar and wind power in India's energy mix, and for his vision in accelerating the development of solar energy when he was a Chief Minister of Gujarat.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but still to come on the show, war of words erupts as Delhi gears up for elections. We'll tell you all about it after this short break. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, the political war of words has picked up in Delhi even before the announcement of assembly poll dates, which will happen any time soon. Now, a day after the Prime Minister held a massive rally in the capital, both the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party came down heavily on the promises he made in his speech. While AAP claimed Modi had nothing new to offer, Congress accused the BJP of trying to discredit the party's contribution to the capital when it was in power. Here's more.
The date for the assembly polls in Delhi is likely to be announced anytime next week. But political rhetoric is already high-pitched in the first of the state polls this year. The campaign for the elections in Delhi was kicked off by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday, where he was particularly critical of Aam Aadmi Party's 49-day tenure last year. However, the party claims that PM's rally was a flop show with no new vision for the national capital.
कोई नया एजेंडा, कोई नया विजन, कोई नई योजना प्रधानमंत्री के पास नहीं थी। दिल्ली के लोग बड़ी उम्मीद लेके गए थे। आम आदमी पार्टी एक इतिहास बनाने के लिए अग्रसर है। दिल्ली में एक अभूतपूर्व विजय की ओर अग्रसर है आम आदमी पार्टी।
Congress is trying to make a comeback after a poor show in Delhi polls over a year back. The party accused BJP of trying to mislead voters on its achievements during its 15-year tenure earlier.
क्या वायदे करे? उन्होंने कहा 24 घंटे बिजली दिल्ली को मिलेगी, तो दिल्ली को तो हमेशा से 24 घंटे बिजली मिलती रही है। जब से इनकी सरकार आई है तभी से पावर कट होना शुरू हुआ है। तो ये तो सिर्फ इतनी मेहरबानी कर दें कि जो स्थिति दिल्ली की नवंबर 2013 से पहले थी उसको रिस्टोर कर दें, तो इनकी बड़ी कृपा होगी हमारे पे।
Undeterred by criticism, BJP plans massive campaigns for the Delhi elections. It hopes to rope in its newly elected chief ministers in Haryana, Maharashtra and Jharkhand to hold rallies in the capital. On Saturday, Modi had praised them as the real Aam Aadmi chief ministers. BJP is still riding high on the thumping majority in the recently concluded assembly elections. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the launch of Air Vistara has added to India's long list of private carriers. But amid the crowded market of private players in the sector, India's safety ranking by the US Federal Aviation Administration was downgraded last year. This year, though, India hopes to regain FAA's Category 1 safety status by March. Here's a report.
The US Federal Aviation Administration will carry out its audit in March this year. The Civil Aviation Ministry is taking corrective measures to regain the country's top aviation safety rating, downgraded first time to Category 2 on January 31, 2014.
Internationally, into many countries, we are not able to increase the frequencies. We got frozen there, and we don't want a further downgrade because it would mean again Indian security not being able to perform. So we'd like security to be meaningful. We'd like safety to get back to certain standards.
India had enjoyed the Category 1 rating since 1997. The downgrade to Category 2 placed it below Pakistan and in the category of countries like Zimbabwe and Indonesia. The FAA conducts audits of safety standards and processes in the aviation sector for different countries that fly airlines into the United States. The audit covers the gamut of activities, including those relating to legislation, regulations, technical personnel, training, licensing, certification, surveillance obligations, which are critical for aviation safety oversight functions.
You have to recruit the right person, you have to train them, you have to give them on-job experience. The functions of the DGC are so complex, you have to give them those experience on the job, then they become mature.
The downgrade by FAA doesn't mean that Indian carriers are unsafe to fly. The Federal Aviation Administration cited inadequate oversight mechanism and low staff strength with the DGCA to properly monitor the safety performance of Indian carriers for the downgrade. The category downgrade could severely affect any expansion plans of Indian carriers to United States. Often, the FAA upgrade or downgrade acts as a cue for other air safety organizations.
The downgrade means that India's safety oversight system does not meet the minimum standards laid down by UN body International Civil Aviation Organization. Due to this downgrade, Indian airlines such as Air India and Jet Airways, the only ones flying to the US, cannot expand their operations there or tie up with American carriers. The flights of these Indian carriers are also subject to additional security checks at US airports. Reporting from Delhi, Kriti Mishra for Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, let's now bring you up to date with the other stories making news across the nation in our segment Nationwide. At a meeting of its top leaders chaired by Party President Amit Shah, the BJP discussed strategies to capture around 3/4 of seats in the 243-member Bihar Assembly. The party plans to work under Mission 185. BJP's working target of winning 185 seats is crucial for them to gather majority in the Rajya Sabha, where it is short of numbers. Senior JDU leader Nitish Kumar has put to rest speculations over Jitan Ram Manjhi's removal as Chief Minister of Bihar. Nitish Kumar added that the issue was not discussed with leaders of the Janata Parivar during his recent visit to Delhi. Speculation was rife that the JDU leadership might remove Manjhi from the post in the wake of his controversial statements. The northern part of the country remains in the grip of a cold wave with dense fog disrupting rail and air traffic. Uttar Pradesh has announced that schools will remain closed till January 14th due to the severe cold. Farmers in certain areas suffered huge losses as their crops were ruined in the extreme weather conditions. Rain and snowfall has been predicted in parts of Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh, and that will directly impact states like Punjab, Haryana, Delhi and Uttar Pradesh. Let's now bring you up to date with international stories. The Indonesian search and rescue authorities will attempt to retrieve the black box of the ill-fated Air Asia flight QZ8501. The flight recorder was located among the debris yesterday. The recorders are trapped under the debris of the main body of the plane. Divers will try to shift the debris, but if that fails, then the debris will be lifted by inflatable balloons, a technique already used to recover the tail section of the crashed aircraft. The recovery of the flight recorders is critical for learning why the aircraft went down on December 28th, killing all 162 people on board. More international news now. It was the day Paris united. 40 world leaders joined a crowd of 1.6 million in Paris for a unity march on Sunday, few days after the deadly attacks that left 17 dead. An estimated 3.7 million took to the streets across the country. Meanwhile, French police continues its manhunt for the partner of one of the suspects who was gunned down. Here's more.
More than 3 million people marched for unity all across France after 17 people were left dead during 3 days of attacks in Paris. Up to 1.6 million took to the streets in Paris alone for a massive anti-terror march that continued even as night fell. In a show of solidarity, around 40 world leaders, including British Prime Minister David Cameron, German Chancellor Angela Merkel, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu attended the rally. The leaders observed a minute's silence before the march and they walked in solidarity from Place de la République, concluding their march in the Place de la Nation. The French government said that the rally turnout was the highest on record.
Mais nous savons que c'est difficile et que ce qui s'est passé hier encore, une nouvelle fois, ravive toutes les peurs. Quelle est la réponse? Elle doit être évidemment policière, judiciaire, mais la plus belle des réponses, c'est ce qui est en train de se passer aujourd'hui. N'ayons pas peur. N'ayons pas peur d'être journalistes. N'ayons pas peur d'être policiers. N'ayons pas peur d'être juifs.
À ce jour, qui est plein d'honneur, d'émotion, je ne peux pas m'exprimer suffisamment.
You are with people and share with people is important. So that's probably what we try to recreate here today.
It's a big thing for us to be here today and say, look, we're not there, but we're with you.
Solidarity marches were also held in other cities, including London, Madrid, Cairo, Montreal, Beirut, Sydney and Tokyo.
It's frustrating to be abroad while your own country is attacked. So it's a way for all the French in Washington, D.C. to gather, and to send this message to the motherland.
The Charlie Hebdo massacre suspects were killed on Friday after two violent standoffs. However, French police are still searching for the partner of the gunman, Amedy Coulibaly, who attacked a supermarket. Coulibaly was killed by security forces along with 4 hostages during the siege. Ahead of the rally, a video emerged appearing to show Amedy Coulibaly pledging allegiance to the Islamic State. French officers are also trying to investigate the 3 terror suspects' links to Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups.
Terör saldırısı sonrasında da istihbarat birimlerimiz arasında çok kapsamlı istişareler gerçekleştiriliyor. Bu çerçevede Fransa'dan bize intikal eden bilgilerle bizdeki bilgilerin karşılaştırılması süreci devam ediyor. Bir kez daha vurgulamak isterim. İstihbarat birimlerimiz, güvenlik birimlerimiz arasında tam bir işbirliği var.
France will stay on high alert in the coming weeks. French Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve on Sunday hosted a meeting of fellow interior ministers from across Europe to discuss the threat posed by militants. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, in his first major address since becoming Sri Lanka's 6th president, Maithripala Sirisena has said tackling poverty would be one of his government's main priorities. He called on all political parties in the country to bind together in a show of national unity.
2 days after defeating incumbent President Mahinda Rajapakse, taking just over 51% of the total votes, Maithripala Sirisena addressed Sri Lankans. He called for greater unity within the government to tackle the issues facing the island country, including poverty.
අපේ රටේ පොදු මහ ජනතාව රටේ අනාගත සංවර්ධනය අද ජීවත් වන ජනතාව වගේම හෙට උපදින දරුවන් සඳහා මේ රටේ සදාචාර සම්පන්න.
Before his address from the temple of the sacred tooth relic, Sirisena took part in a Buddhist blessing ceremony. The new Lankan president belongs to the majority Sinhala Buddhist community, but he has attempted to reach out to ethnic minority Tamils and Muslims and has the support of several smaller parties. Sirisena also wants to rework the country's foreign policy. Under Rajapakse, it tilted heavily towards China after the previous government had a falling out with the West over human rights. Sirisena is also likely to come closer to India.
ජීවන වියදම භාණ්ඩ මිල ආර්ථික අමාරුකම් දැඩි ලෙස අපේ පොදු මහ ජනතාවට ඇති වී තිබෙන පීඩාකාරී තත්ත්වයක් බව අපි බොහොම පැහැදිලිව දන්නවා.
Sirisena has also pledged to abolish the executive presidency that gave Rajapakse unprecedented power. He has also promised to hold a fresh parliamentary election within 100 days. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's now bring you up to date with the other news-making stories from around the globe in our World Wrap. Conservative populist Kolinda Grabar-Kitarović has become Croatia's first female president. She beat the centre-left incumbent Ivo Josipovic in a runoff election on Sunday. Kitarović secured 50.5% of the vote, while incumbent Josipovic was close behind with 49.5%. German police arrested a suspected supporter of insurgent group Islamic State who was recently in Syria. The man was suspected of having joined the IS during his stay in Syria from October 2013 till November 2014. There were no indications, however, that the man had any concrete plans for an attack. A group of Pakistan and Afghanistan Taliban member has pledged allegiance to the Islamic State after beheading a Pak soldier copying IS's execution tactics. The Islamic State has gained a foothold in Pakistan and Afghanistan in the past year, with a number of former Taliban militants setting up a new group to represent IS interests in the region. Moving on now, top-seeded Roger Federer secured the 1,000th victory of his career by defeating Milos Raonic in the Brisbane International Final on Sunday. Federer defeated the Canadian 6-4, 6-7, 6-4 on the Pat Rafter Arena to clinch his 83rd career title. The world number 2 also became the third man after Jimmy Connors and Evan Lendl to secure 1,000 ATP wins. Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of the Bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good day.